Hey class, Prof JC here, and I want to welcome you to our first podcast for this class right here. Some of you may have taken me in the future or in the past, and so you know kind of how these podcasts work, but if this is your first time to have me, I'm just going to explain it to you very quickly that for, I believe it's 5 of the 8 weeks that we have, I'll present a podcast to you, and it will be no longer than 10 minutes. This is something I'm trying to change here for the future because I can start talking. I get so passionate about this stuff. I start talking for 25, 27, 30 minutes, and I got to realize you guys don't have that kind of time. So I'm going to try to keep these about 10 minutes or less. Today's will be a little bit longer because I'm just explaining how this works. And so I'll present the podcast, and then during the podcast, in the podcast somewhere, and you can find these podcasts, you can find them on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, however you can watch it, you can listen to it, however it works for you. During the podcast, at some point, I'll have about two to three different questions. So, sometimes I'll place them at the end, sometimes I'll put them in between, because I found that sometimes people would go all the way to the end and they would just make up some answers not based on what they'd heard, and so I just give straight zeros for those kind of answers. So you got to really listen to this, but that's why I'm going to try to make these as short as possible so you can get this in your busy schedules. So I'll put the questions in there, and then then you'll just answer those questions. You don't have to make these long paragraphs. These don't have to take a long time, okay? You write as much as you want to, but you don't have to write full pages, okay? You just write and answer the question, and that'll be good enough for us, okay? So today, and I'm gonna start my timer here to make sure that we are, we're running on time, and to make sure we keep it under our 10 minutes. Press start right there. Here we go. I'm gonna share my screen with you, and I wanna talk to you about something that I think is so powerful that it could be transformative for you. Maybe if this is the only thing that you take from this class, I would tell you that you have taken the right thing from this class, okay? I think that this is so important. I'm just going to place myself here in the middle of the screen here so we can see everything. Again, I've shared my screen, but if you're listening to this, this one might be helpful if you were to watch the video. That might be helpful for you, just because I've got a little chart, but the chart is also in the book if you have the book. It's kind of what this law of the lid is kind of based around here. This, I think, is probably one of the most important things that you can understand, a mindset shift when it comes to leadership. And here's the mindset shift. And I remember years ago when I first read this book and I came to understand this, it transformed everything. Because when I first got started in leadership, and I'd been in the military, so I thought I knew how to lead, but the military is not extremely, well, it's hard to be a leader no matter where you are. But in the military, what they have that helps a little bit is they've got that rank on your shoulder. So people know if you outrank them and they're on your team or they're in your platoon or whatever it is, and you tell them what to do and you've got a rank on your shoulder, everybody in the military knows you have to do what they say. And when I was in the military as well, I remember you could be some random place. You could be at the mall on a Saturday, and if you started to act out, and maybe your commander happened to be there, or some other commander, or command sergeant major, I was in the Army, they could have you do push-ups in the mall. I mean, they could, not saying that they did all the time, but they could. I remember being somewhere in line one time, and the lady it was at the PX, it was at the on-campus, the on-base commissary, and I'd been standing in line forever, okay? And it finally got to my turn, and some guy walked up, and the lady looked at both of our ranks and chose that person to help first. And there's nothing I could do about it. He was a command sergeant major, and I was like a private or something. That's just how it works. So I'm saying I got out of the military, thought I understood leadership because I did that, and I think I led well in leadership. I got some awards for leadership, but then I came out to the civilian world and realized I had no clue. And my first leadership task, and maybe I'll talk about that more later on in the class, was an absolute failure. And all of that, though, I'm grateful for that, because all of that led me now to where I am, because I spent a summer, so this would have been back in 2011, at just horrible leadership failures, and I just couldn't get it right. I just couldn't get it down. But I spent the summer reading at the UCLA library. That's where I got my undergrad. So I went to their business school and read, and I found this great book called On Becoming a Leader. And then after that, it was about 2 books later, I found this book, John Maxwell. And this law right here transformed everything for me. And once I understood this and got this, I was able to go back to my leadership and everything began to take off. And I began to have a lot more success in leadership because of these principles I learned. So this one I think could be key for you. And it's called the law of the lid. And here's the basic gist of it. Okay. Again, you can read the chapter. It's chapter 1. I love that he put it at the very first of the book because it's probably the most important law. Here's what the law of the lid is about. It basically just means that your leadership level will determine the leadership level of your team or organization. Okay. Your leadership level will determine the leadership level of your team, your organization, and everyone else who works for you. And I would also put in there for those of us who have families and kids, our leadership level determines the level that our kids will go. Okay. And we've seen this before. You've seen this before too, kids that really struggle early on. And then you get a chance to look at kind of their home life and where they came from. And then you have a lot of compassion and empathy. And you say, well, it's no wonder why that person couldn't really make too much out of themselves when you look at where they came from. Now, obviously, there are other stories to the other extreme too, people who didn't come from, great homes that went on to do great things. But those stories are much fewer than what we realize. Okay, that law of the lid is really real. And so it works as a parent, it works as a boss, it works as even team members, the people around us, our friend groups. Okay, especially if you happen to be the leader of the pack, nobody else will rise above you. So here's what the chart shows us there. Okay, the law of the lid says this: you can be a person who's successful, but not have leadership. And as you see down there at the bottom, what you'll see in the chart there is you might come all the way across and you might be an 8 on the success level, 8 out of 10. You might even be a 9 out of 10. You might even make it all the way 10 out of 10 in personal success. You are personally dedicated. You are a fit person. You're at the gym every single day. You've got all the great habits that you could possibly have. Maybe you've got a nice solid bank account. You've got everything going for you. You are personally successful. Okay. And that puts you all the way down there. But unfortunately, based on this chart, your effectiveness is not going to be great, especially when it comes to leadership. You are personally successful, but you're not effective because you don't have the leadership that you need. Okay. Your leadership lid is all the way down there at a 1. Okay. So your leadership ability is a 1. It doesn't matter how far you go on the, you go all the way to a 10 in personal success. If your leadership's at a 1, that's going to be your effectiveness right there, as you see there in the chart. Okay. And here's what I've seen before, and in my own traveling and consulting and training, and here's some of the stories I hear about people who have been very successful in a company doing a job, and then they're asked to turn around and lead other people, and they don't know how to do that. All they know how to do is to do the job extremely well, and then they get put in a leadership position because they did that job extremely well, but then they're not very successful with that because they just don't know what they're doing. Right? They don't know how to lead other people, so they can't be effective. And so what we're talking about here is effectiveness. You can be as successful as you want, but you've got to learn how to lead other people if you're really going to have, especially organizational or team effectiveness. So the second chart all the way, now watch this. So you can be 8 on success, okay? But if your leadership ability goes all the way to a 6, okay, and that's not really as high of a leader as you could possibly go. But look at that effectiveness right there. That's a level 6 leader who has way more effectiveness than a level 1 leader who might be all the way over 10 on personal success, but they don't know how to lead other people. Now, obviously, the dream for all of us is that we get all the way up to 10 on success dedication, and we get all the way up to 10 on leadership ability. I mean, that's like the creme de la creme. That's not easy to get. But if you're gonna, here's the deal, and you've got to grow in both of these too. That's something else I want to point out. If you just grow in your leadership ability, but you have no dedication to success. So that's the person who reads all the books. They've got all the theory. They've got all the knowledge. They can tell you all the stuff that all the books are saying, but then they have no no dedication to success. They have no dedication to trying to get somewhere. They don't have discipline. They don't have consistency, all those things. Then that person's they're not gonna have effectiveness as well. You've got to have success dedication, but probably the most important thing you can have is you've got to have that leadership ability. If you're just about success and you're not about leadership, you're not going to be effective. So the law of the lid states the higher you go, the higher. And here's what that law means: that if you reach an 8, the highest anyone else can go around you is a 7. That's it. Okay. So you're an 8 and you'll probably be surrounded by 7s. It's very rare that someone who is higher on the lid than you are is going to want to work for you. Okay. It's very, I mean, I rarely see that where someone who is a 5 on the leadership scale and they're working for, or maybe they got an 8 or 9. And if you have an 8 or 9 working for you, they're extremely frustrated because your lid is holding them back and they're probably not going to stick with you very long, or they're going to take your job, right? You're going to be out of a job because someone else is going to come in and recognize that. So it's really important that you are dedicated to success, but that leadership is important. And again, when I read this, it frightened me to think that everybody around me, everybody under my leadership, they will only go up to my level, right? And probably one level below that. So I needed to make sure, because I care so much about people and I want people to succeed, I need to make sure that I was committed to going as high as I could so everybody else could go high around me. Okay, so if your organization is not going in the direction you need to go, if your leadership, your team, whatever it is, it's not working out, more than likely you've got some leadership things you've got to work on. Okay, and you are the lid to everyone else around you. If everyone on your team is frustrated, it's because their lid, you're trying to go higher than what you are, and maybe you're a 5 or 6. Okay, I'm not saying that to be offensive. I'm just saying that might be the truth right now. You might be a 5 or 6, and you've got some 7 or 8 surrounding you, but they're incredibly frustrated because your lid needs to go higher. Okay, so this is very important as we talk about leadership the next several weeks, is for you to understand you are the lid on your organization, you are the lid on your team, you are the lid on your family. That's the timer saying it's time to ramp down here. So let's get to our questions here. Okay, so let's get to our questions here. What is leadership ability? And then I want you to be brave in this one. Again, it's just me who's going to read it, and I'm not going to judge you for it. Okay, what do you think your leadership ability is right now? Okay, so define leadership ability, and then I want you to tell me what your leadership is right now. Okay, and then what is success dedication? What is that? And then tell me what your success dedication. So that's on a scale of 1 to 10. You know, your leadership ability. Are you a 10? Are you a 9, 8, 7, 6? And you don't have to define why you are, but just say, hey, right now in life, right now, I'm probably about a 7 or 8. Or right now, maybe some of you would say, I'm a 4. And I want to recommend to you, be as honest as you can about this. Don't lie to me about it, right? It's about you getting better. So if you can be aware that you're 5, then you can say, you know what? I'm taking this program because by the end of this program, I want to be an 8. And then over the next 2 to 3 years, I'm going to go from an 8 to a 10, right? Because I'm going to still stay dedicated, still stay dedicated to growing in leadership. Okay. And then your success, dedication. But what are you? That right there is going to show you what your effectiveness is. Okay. And then for the third question I want you to answer is, why is the law of the lid so important for leadership, so important for teams, and so important for organizations? Okay. So those are your three questions right there. Feel free to answer those questions. Make sure they're due by Sunday night. Please, no late assignments. You're just going to get a 0 for it. And I want to make sure that you're not getting zeros, and because this is not a hard class to pass. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I'll see you in the next episode of the podcast. Have a great week. Take care.